Welcome to Loud and Clear, a program geared toward the younger generations. You can listen in every Thursday at 7 p.m. or find the plug to our YouTube channel on kgtcradio.com.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Carlos.
And welcome to Loud and Clear. We are back today for, I kind of wrapped up my testimony part 1. And so we're kind of just going into a part 2 of my testimony. There was, after thinking about it, there was just so much more that I think in my testimony that kind of came later versus my teenage years. I think that me and my wife were talking about it at one point where it's like, I think that my mental space as a youth pastor is to talk about my struggles as a teenager. But today we do have Garrett joining us again.
Yep, it's good to be here. Thank you.
We're grateful to have you here, and we're excited to get into this. And I'm just kind of going to go off on a little bit of the testimony. Before we get into it, does anybody have any highlights or anything like that? I'm hitting you guys like out of the blue with this. So.
Yeah, it's, my highlight, I don't know. I've just been thinking lately, I don't want to get serious, but, sometimes you just got to get serious. I've just been thinking, like, I'm just grateful to be where I am today.
Yeah.
Like, that's my highlight. I feel like God's taken me on a journey lately of slowing me down and taking me through the seasons of my life. Yeah. And just, like, thinking how lucky I am to serve a God that genuinely loves me.
Yeah, it's good.
And had his hand in my life from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't know him or his hand was on my life. And I'm just grateful to be where I am today. The opportunity to even be in the studio with you guys is a blessing. And I just am, I'm just grateful for who God is and what he's doing. And my highlight is Jesus. That's my highlight this week. Good. My highlight is Jesus. I'm just grateful to serve a good master.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I think that I've been grateful lately for that's good. That's cool that you talk about slowing down.
Yeah.
Because often when we slow down and we have that rest in Jesus, things seem to speed up in other areas.
Yeah.
Like good things. Things seem to progress, and we're like, I don't understand. I've just been resting. And that's just the way it works.
Yeah,
that's the way relationship with God works. And I've been really grateful lately. I feel like I've had a lot of time with my wife. Not that which is weird because she's been more busy than ever lately. And we've been really busy, but just doing little things to spend more time together.
Yeah.
And it's been really beautiful and it's been really fun. And I'm just excited for more of that and doing more things together. And God's done some work, just in our marriage, and it's been good. So I've been grateful for that. Anything over there, Garrett?
Yeah, I'll go on the non-serious route. This week, it's serious, but my baby girl Pierce, she started walking this week, so that was a big highlight for us. She's starting to learn to get around her own 2 feet, so that's cool.
Now she's gonna cause some trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a blessing, and then also like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many beautiful things in this life, and like I know that we talk to young adults, we talk to teens in this program. Obviously, it's also for everyone that wants to listen. But like, man, you just don't realize what God can do. And obviously we're going to get into that, like what the blessings of having a relationship with God and these little beautiful things in life that we can take for granted that like God wants to bless you with. And it's just, it's beautiful. And so you may not appreciate the things that we've talked about now if you're a teenager, but you will.
Yeah, it's crazy as a teenager, your mindset. Like, you think, you don't even have to say it, but you just think, like, you're just unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, oh, I'm just, like, I'm young, like, I got it going on, and then, like, you get a little bit older, and you're like, man, I wish I would have listened to my pastors.
Yes, yeah.
Like, man, I wish I would have listened to my youth pastor. Man, I wish I would have listened, like, and then life just humbles you, and then you just get to the point where you're like, you know what? Life is all about Jesus.
Yeah.
Like my life, I'm choosing to wrap my life around Jesus.
Yeah.
Everything that I do, every decision, everywhere I go is going to be wrapped up in Jesus. But like, I know for you and I, like we grew up in the church, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't nothing new really, but it's almost worse when you like grow up in the church, you know the truth, and you're still like, nah, I got it going on. Like, I still think I'm something, and then like to get humbled and be like, you know what, I'm nothing. Like I think I said it a couple programs ago, how scary it would be if God just raised his hand off my life, just took his hand off my life, you know? I'm sure all three of us can say that sitting here, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just grateful for a God that is long suffering and puts up with my, you know, I'm hard-headed, and I'm grateful that he doesn't back away. You know, he's like, no, I'm going to keep chasing you. Like he's always pursuing me, you know, and I just love that about God. So
yeah, no, and that's so good. And when you're a young person, like, I mean, it's really hard to because I remember being a young person, like, thinking that you got it going on, or thinking that you have everything it's sorted, and think that you know what you're doing, or you're like, oh, I'm not going to listen to somebody that's older than me, you know, because what if things can be different, you know, and like, I think that, you know, you have to allow God to speak to you. I mean, I will say, I admit there are things that, like, for example, my parents, there are many things, probably like 90% of the things, where it's like they just had the mind and the heart of God from the beginning. Yeah. And then there's other things to where it's like, okay, I feel like maybe like God has shown me something else about that specific thing, you know, and like God grows, and through the generations, God refines. It's a refinement is what it is. And, you know, God will continue to refine us. And, but yeah, you might be, so I get the young person, like, you know, like, oh yeah, you're saying that. And it just kind of bounces off. And I think is like, if you're a young person and you're grasping this and you're trying to minister to your friends, or you're a young adult that's trying to minister to your friends, you know, really, I think that what's been the truest thing in my life is having solid people that love me, and that, like, if anything bad happens, because unfortunately sometimes bad things have to happen to people to wake them up. It's the solid people that are consistent, that are pursuing you, that love you, that you know are full of peace, you know that they're solid. Those are the people you run to. Yeah. And I think that, like, we need to be that for people, whether it be taking people to coffee consistently, or just spending time with them consistently, being a safe, peaceful place. They will run to that, you know, and when something goes wrong, and then you can share that truth, and then there will be a door open. And so that's the goal for us, I think, is to be that for teens, you know, and that helped me. My dad growing up, and this is kind of going back into the first part of my testimony, is my dad growing up, he would always tell me, and this was the most powerful thing, he was like, there's nothing that you could either do or think about doing that I haven't already done or thought about doing. And just gave a door to just talk with him, whatever. He would take me with him, whether we'd be woodcutting, whether we'd be doing a job together, going for coffee, whatever, you know, and just driving together and spending that time. It was so powerful, because that, like, just created an open door for me. And I attribute that a lot to my ability to, or just me coming back to, I just knew that God was a good God. Yeah. I just knew through that relationship. And, you know, really where my testimony began, and I'll get to this, is when I got into my young adulthood. Yeah. You know, and, like, I mean, I obviously had the teenager battles as a young person that everybody does, but I was pretty sure-footed on, like, what I believe. Like, I didn't really question, like, Jesus. I didn't really question my faith. I just struggled. Yeah. Right. When I got into young adulthood, I legit questioned my faith altogether. Like, I think that I was pretty solid for a while. I think I got wrapped up in being an adult. Yeah. Doing life, making money, you know, making things happen. I would say that sometimes the biggest downfall is your ability, your natural self. And I think that I was taught really well from a young kid to how to manage finances, how to be successful. And I could do that, and I was that. And I think that you get comfortable in that. And as much as God was doing things, and I would seek out God, and in the presence of God, I think that God has worked through ministry in my life as a young adulthood, as a young adult. Time went on, and there were questions that would come out of that being comfortable. And there's questions when you don't have struggles. Sometimes obviously I had struggles, but when you don't have real issues, or when you don't put yourself in a position to deal with people's issues and be in the midst of stuff with people, and you get cozy, then you start to relax and you start to question.
Yeah.
You start to get comfortable. And I think that's where a lot of things came from in my life. I've never dealt with alcohol, drugs, anything like that. That's never been a battle for me. I have an amazing wife that has been, dedicated and gives me no reason to be insecure in our marriage, right? And I've never had anything like that. And so I think that, the ability to get cozy or the getting cozy, like there's just questions that start to creep in, and you allow things that are into your home because they have seemingly no effect on your home. And when they really do, and that's where I encourage teens, watch the content that you consume, because it may not be anti-God, but it might be godless. Yeah. And therefore it is, in a sense, anti-God.
Yeah, I think that's actually really profound. I think something that even believers, obviously we have to watch ourselves too. It's like, and this is, I believe, a huge part of the baptism of the Holy Spirit, is it's the Holy Spirit's job to reveal to you what's good and what's God. And I think that's the battle, right? Like the battle is, okay, this can be good for me, but that doesn't mean it's God.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of believers fall into that category of like, well, this is good. Okay, but if it just because it's good doesn't mean it's God. Yeah. And something can be good and be pushing you away from God, and society might say, well, it's good. Okay, well, but that doesn't mean that it's God-led. You know, kind of like what you're saying, it can be good but be godless. Yeah. And so therefore it's not really good.
Yes.
And so I think that's really good.
It's like consuming the news even.
Yeah.
You might feel like might even be a Christian news outlet or whatever, but if that's all you're consuming, that's going to pull you a certain direction. It's going to make you think differently. And I had content that I would consume that sometimes it wasn't even necessarily bad content, and it was just godless.
Yeah.
It was getting my mind on things and getting my faith put in position to something else. And the reason why even and you could go, oh, well, whatever, some people might struggle with that. No, it came to the point to where it really did. It was a slow fade, got my faith positioned in other things, so much so that there was a moment where I was like, this walk with God is so hard. And because my faith wasn't in the right place, to where I was like, I think I'm done, and I think I'm gonna walk away. I think that this is over, and that was probably, I want to say 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago maybe. My wife's counting on her fingers. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. And we had a lot of stuff going on in our church, nothing necessarily with our immediate leadership at the time, but there was some stuff that had happened prior, and just some stuff that really had affected me. And it was just hard, but it wasn't just that. It was that I was drifting.
Yeah.
And I was putting my faith in other places, and I would still have the fear of God in my life. I think I still had the acknowledgement that I don't want God's hand to be lifted off my life, even though that I was struggling to believe that God was there. I still it contradicted itself because I was afraid, and I would still, before every youth thing, even if I was struggling to prepare because I just wasn't in it, I was distracted, I would still pray. I'd say, God, do it for them. Do it for them. And even, again, I'm praying to God, and I'm also questioning God at the same time, right. But God would meet me, and there was times where I'd preach a word, and Melanie would say, that was amazing. I was like, I don't think so. I'm struggling to believe in God here, and it was crazy. But God was faithful, and I know we talked about this, and you were present kind of around for that when it all transpired. And the main thing that I just said is you position yourself to receive from God even when you don't feel it.
Yeah.
And you continue to position yourself. And there was a moment to where I was like, I don't feel this. I don't even believe this right now, but I'm going to continue to position myself to receive. And there was a moment where God met me.
Yeah.
And God brought me through that, and it changed everything moving forward. to where there's been a surety in my life that it doesn't feel fragile anymore, you know? I think that sometimes when we have questions, I think that it's good to just simply trust the Lord, seek the Lord, obviously. But, you know, if you have questions, how much more does the people that you're preaching to have?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and if you're allowed to have a question sweep through your mind, maybe it's for a purpose so that you can speak to that in somebody else.
That's good.
You know, and so.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about, I think you were talking at the beginning of the program about, you know, it's important that we go through things. You know, like, you know, we don't want to go through things, trials and tribulations. Like, nobody wants to. Don't get me wrong. Nobody's like wants to go through things. But the truth is, and Jesus is very honest, you know, when he talks about, you know, those who want to follow me need to first deny themselves, pick up their cross daily. Mm-hmm. You know, and so Jesus is saying following me is going to be hard. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be hard. You're going to go through things. And I think First Peter talks about don't be surprised when trials and tribulations come, you know. Yeah. But you're you know, I like what Galatians 6:17 says. From now on, this is Paul talking. He says, from now on, let no one cause me trouble because I bear on my body the marks of Jesus. Mm-hmm. Here's Paul saying, like, you know, religion will tell you that if you're going through something, you don't really love God. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're struggling with something, then you don't really love God because religion tells you that you should live a perfect life. There shouldn't be struggles. And here's Paul saying, like, no, because I have marks on my body, because I've been through some things, that's how you know I am walking with God. Yeah. Like, sometimes we think, like, walking with God is supposed to be peachy and I'm never going to have any scars. And that's not the case at all. You look at the believers in the Bible, all but one apostle died. Was martyred for their faith. Like, don't tell me that we're never going to go through things, but I think it's beautiful because the men that I sit under have all have their marks. Mm-hmm. They've all been through some things, and it's those marks that they have that make me want to sit underneath them and learn from them. Yeah. Because maybe their marks look different than mine, but they're things that I want to learn from. Yeah. You know, and obviously, Nathan, you have your marks. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have our marks, and that. All that does, if anything, equips us better to lead other people. Yeah. You know, because I think as a leader, you're kind of saying, like what Paul said, look at my marks. Yeah. Like, look at what I've gone through for, you know, I've suffered for falling. Not because we want the glory, but we're saying, you know, I'm walking with God. Yeah. And these marks prove that I am because I've had to go through some things. Yeah. Things have had to been weeded out of my life. You know, God's had to perform his sanctifying process in me, and those marks just prove it. You know, like it's not like we wear it as a badge, but it is the sign that we are trying to walk with God. Yeah. And it is powerful too. And I brought this up, I think maybe it was on Morning the Word one time or something, but I'm kind of a romantic when it comes to like movies and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I you know, like I do enjoy, you know, to watch a movie with my wife. Occasionally, we don't do it very often. It's pretty rare, but I remember watching the Chronicles of Narnia growing up and stuff like that. And there's one scene it's just always stuck with me. And it was in the second one. I think it was the Caspian one or whatever. And they're in this, I don't know if they were in a boat or if they were in a little bunker thing or whatever. All I know is I think they were downstairs in something. And there was like a mirror. And it was the witch shows up. Obviously, she was taken care of in the first one. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's an old movie. And then obviously if you read the books. But so she appears in this mirror or whatever. And she's almost enticing Peter, which is the main lead guy, like the righteous one that has never faltered, you know, and is enticing him. He's kind of honestly like almost agreeing to have help from her. And then the mirror shatters from behind, and it's Edmund. Yeah. That was taken, and or he wasn't even he joined her almost, you know, and he went through a lot of stuff, and he was brought out of that symbolically by Christ, you know, and he goes, and he just says this line, he goes, I know. And that's it. And I'm like, that's powerful in my mind. Because somebody is like, I've been there. Yeah, like, I know the attacks of the enemy, and Jesus brought me out of it. And I know that like, and that's so cool. What you're talking about is that we do sit under people that have their scars. And it's like, they've been there. Yes. You know, and for them to say, I know, I think is powerful. Yeah. I think a leader that doesn't have scars probably shouldn't be leading.
Yeah.
And I mean that respectfully, but I think that a leader, I mean, these are the ways in which God tests you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think every man of God has to be tested. And it's not so much for others as it is for us.
Yeah.
Like, we need to understand who we are in Christ.
Yeah.
And the only way we can truly understand who we are in Christ is by being tested,
Yep.
is by being refined. Because here's what happens when you're tested. What's being tested is where you're going to go to.
Yeah.
Where are you going to run to when you're going through things?
Yeah,
are you running to
absolutely.
the things of the world, or are you going to run to Jesus?
Yeah.
Are you going deeper in your relationship with Christ, or are you going to throw in the towel and quit? Like, what's tested in us, I believe, will always, and I think will always be tested in us, is that quit margin. Like, where is your quit line? You know, as a believer, we shouldn't have one.
Yeah.
And I know that's easier said than done, because people have gone through terrible things.
Yeah.
But I want to get to I think I am to a point where I'm just like, God, I've seen your faithfulness.
Yeah.
Like, at this point in my life, you know, I'm like, I have decided to follow Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I have decided, like, there's no, you know, that old hymn, you know, I have decided to follow Jesus. You know, no turning back.
Yeah.
There is no turning back. There's no way that I could ever go back. You know, as hard as life can be, like, my mind's made up. You know, Joshua says, choose this day whom you're going to serve.
Yeah.
It's a daily decision. God, I'm going to follow you.
Yeah.
Whatever this day brings, I'm going to follow you. Whatever my trials bring, I'm going to follow you. Whatever this storm looks like, I'm going to follow you.
Yeah, it's so good. And it can't be conditional, you know, and I think
yeah.
that's also a part of the testimony that I have too, is that, like, I think that there's been some battles that we've went through. You know, there was a season where I felt like we were having these opinions. We have differing opinions from people that we loved, and I think that it made us feel like outsiders, you know? And I think that it put this narrative around my life and around me and my wife's life. And I think there began to be things that the enemy set up in my mind that, like, well, if this happens, you walk away. If this happens, like, conditions, right? And it's like, it's kind of ridiculous. And it's like, I am to the point now where it's like, you can't have conditions on God, you know, or conditions on relationship and walking with God. You know, like, I have to trust that even if a leader, even if somebody in my life that God has put there, by the way, makes a mistake or does something or steps out of line, God will simply honor my life because I've honored the leadership that was put before me. Right? You know, you do nothing by saying, well, they said this, so I'm walking away because I don't agree with that. That's wrong. Yeah. And I'm going to go do something else. No, like, obviously if there's something crazy, like, you take it before the Lord. But yeah, take it before the Lord and express these things to the Lord and remain. Yes. Be a pillar in your church, be a pillar in your small group, be a pillar in your youth group if you're a teenager, be a pillar in your family. Like, God has called you to do that. You don't just, like a family, you don't just get to walk away. Yeah. You know, you don't. And so, like, that's like, for me, is that God's been speaking that to me, is like, there's no conditions here. You were called to ministry, you serve, and it doesn't matter what happens. You know, if you honor your leadership and you honor this call, your life will be blessed. Yeah, you know.
Good. And when I think, you know, I know we're running out of time, but I think in, like, remembering, I know for me, I've had to tell myself over and over and over again, like, God's calling these people, not man. Yes. You know, and I God's taking me back over and over and over to David when he was anointed the first time. Yeah. His own dad didn't think he was worthy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, his own dad was like, no, it can't be him. Yep. And God's like, but I know his heart. Yeah, exactly. You know, and sometimes we can look at the people that we think are qualified, but God knows their heart. Yeah. God knows that they're not qualified. Yeah. God knows that they don't have that shepherd's heart. They don't have the hidden character that God is looking for. And so, you know, when leadership makes mistakes, you know, number one, treat people with the same grace that we want. Exactly, yeah. You know, when we see people make mistakes, we're like, oh, we want justice. Yeah. And then we make a mistake and we're like, oh, we want the grace of God, you know. Yeah, and exactly. It's like, no, we don't get to play that card. No. But I think honoring leadership is definitely biblical. And you know, obviously I honor you guys. I love you guys, and I'm grateful to do ministry with everybody that we do. But we are out of time, so we will catch you guys on the next program. Deuce.
Tune in to Loud and Clear every Thursday at 7 p.m. or listen online at kgtcradio.com.